and the narrative thing is really, it's really interesting because that's a way sometimes we think about personality as a life story or narrative. And this approach doesn't get studied enough, but it's really important. So if somebody asks you, like, tell me about yourself, you're not going to be like, well, on the big five, I mean, you might, but I might, but
Yeah.
so we're set, like in psychology, we're like, yeah, A plus, that's how we just be like E minus, A plus, and plus plus. Like, that's how we're taught.
Nice.
It's just
That's
sort
cool.
of the big five.
Yeah.
I like that.
But most people will tell a story, and the story, when some people, like, the story I want to tell is I'm just awesome, and that's my story. I'm awesome, but that's not a very good story. The story everyone wants is the hero story. It's the story of I was here and I kind of thought I had it together, but something drew me away, and I went through these adventures and I really fell apart. I thought I was going to lose it all at the bottom. It was awful. But I learned some stuff, and then I came back and I worked my way back, and now I have these boons, these gifts I can bring to people because I've been to the bottom of the well and I've come back up again, and I'm shining like gold, So it's that hero's myth, or that hero's journey that people like. They want to watch that, that's the story we want to watch. But when it becomes to your own life, you're like, yeah, I want to be the hero. But you're like, well, what happens? A hero, he dies. He goes in the trash compactor. He's eaten by the whale. He goes to the bottom of the ocean. He loses it all. He doesn't know who he is. He has to break his whole self into pieces. You're like, I don't want to do that part of it. I just want to do the cool shit.
Yeah.
You
want to stand over the dragon's body after it's already been slain.
Exactly. It's like, I just want to stand over the dragon's body and look like a legend. But if you read the story of, like, Sigismund, Sigmund Freud, the name comes from, like, Sigismund, the hero. And I think in the story, he kills the dragon and he hears the sounds of nature. That's what happens. So when he kills the dragon, it's not like he was a hero. He heard the sounds of nature. It's self-transcendence.
Right.
And, but that's not the story you think. You think the hero stories, you walk in with the dragon on the head, and then you're like, get all that, you get the king's gold and everything thinks you're a legend. But really, the story is you lost yourself in the process. But by losing yourself, you gained yourself.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, I'm just talking.
I was just going to say, that kind of reminds me of, like, why a psychedelic trip may not be the best for everyone, because they're painful at times. And if you actually go through one and you come out feeling like you just died, it's like, I just died and I'm still alive. There's, like, this idea that, like, I don't want to go through that experience, but I want to have the trip of a mushroom experience. You know what I mean? Like, people want to do it thinking it's cool, but the reality is that you may have a painful experience and actually live a death. And so it's one thing to just be aware of in that space.
Yeah. And in the ayahuasca work, that actually this isn't published yet, but but in Brandon's dissertation, he found that I don't know if you guys have worked in the plant medicines like the ayahuasca work, but people have these very difficult experiences. And they're very painful, a lot of pain, suffering, not just physical pain and puking and feel like you just did a shot of battery acid, but just emotional pain. But what's interesting about that is that pain, at least in some of the data, I don't want to, like, this isn't rocket science. I mean, this isn't like science at this point. This is just sort of what I see in the data. I don't want to oversell anything. But sometimes the sense of that, the amount that people suffer is reflected in the amount of healing they have. So sometimes in the ayahuasca work, that suffering seems to be related to the healing process. It's not a bad thing. It's really kind of what you expect.
Yeah.
But like you said, is people like, yeah, I want to do ayahuasca and be cool. And it's like, yeah, but you kind of got to suffer and die and have, all these horrible ego-death experiences and puke your guts out. And then you won't feel cool because you'll be...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, try putting that on Instagram, your Instagram story.
just hurling, puking my guts out, feeling like a little baby, crying and wondering what the hell I did this for. That's
living my best life.
Yeah.
Living my best life.
Yeah, so that's why this stuff is, I think, like, the psychedelics are the most powerful. I think DMT is probably the most powerful medicine there is. There might be more. I've talked to people who've done crazier things, I guess, but I don't know of a lot more powerful, but I don't go out there recommending it to people willy-nilly because people are like, oh, it'd be cool. I'm like, I've had a lot of cool, like, I've done a lot of travel, and you go, I had a great trip. What happened? We got, went to, this is like going to Baja, back in the day, go drive down to Cabo for 3 weeks with some surfboards and fishing rods. And it's like, what happened? Well, we got arrested. We almost had a car crash. We had a burro walk in front of us, try to eat us, all these crazy things happen, almost drowned, sharks, and you're like, what a great trip.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
And that goes back to the openness, like, openness, right? Like, you got to go out there and live with a particular, that's how you can bring the force out of life, is if you have an intensity around what you do, you can actually bring the force of life that's within you along with you, if you're open to things.
I have no research on that, but I that's how I live. I try to I just try to lean into stuff and do stuff that's scary and challenging as much as I can. And I'm safe, I got kids, I'm very safe, old guy. But if you're not taking risks, I find it very hard to grow.